Hello folks, so yesterday I dropped an update video for Wuchang where we discussed the details of patches 1.4 and 1.5 whilst also covering various other aspects surrounding the game. While during this I did say that a few days ago it was announced that Wuchang had sold over 600,000 copies on Steam and over 240,000 copies on PlayStation 5, with Xbox likely being lower due to Game Pass featuring Wuchang as of day one. While I also said that due to the time passed between that original announcement and yesterday's video, that it is likely Wuchang has sold over 1 million copies by now, which isn't half bad for what could be considered Lindsay's debut title, with only having really made short VR games before this. The article was published just a few hours after I published yesterday's video, and it states as follows. Wuchang Fallen Feathers, which is number 9 in top sellers for PlayStation 5, sold 291,000 copies on PlayStation 5 in July, which would be just 7 days, and to date, Wuchang has sold over 326,000 copies on PlayStation 5 and 660,000 copies on Steam. PC optimization issues aside, this is a very decent result for a new IP from a small studio and a testament to the strength of the Souls-like genre. And no, players don't have Souls-like fatigue, as Wuchang is selling faster than Lies of P, and Elden Ring Night Rain has sold over 5 million copies this year. So of course, if we take the 326,000 figure from PlayStation 5, as well as the 660,000 from Steam, and then include all of the other much smaller numbers scattered around, we do indeed have over 1 million copies sold, and it has only been 12 or so days. So less than 2 weeks in total, and as stated in the prior article, Wuchang is a brand new IP from the development studio Lindsay, which up to Wuchang had almost exclusively only dabbled in short VR games. Prior projects were published by themselves, but of course, for Wuchang, they did have the full support of 505 Games as their publisher, which would have helped strengthen the game, but hasn't necessarily helped push it. For example, earlier this year, I covered a game called Blades of Fire, and despite the few flaws that it has, I consider this game to be a true hidden gem that barely anyone has heard of, and Blades of Fire was indeed also published by 505 Games, but seemingly went completely under everyone's radar due to basically no marketing. So my point is, Wuchang has been pushed and has been successful fully off its own merits, and not just because it was published by 505 Games. Now, in regards to how big Lindsay actually is, I did a fair bit of digging around, but I couldn't find a solid number anywhere. I did find this picture from the official Lindsay website, titled Our Team, and I counted upwards of 150 people here, which is quite sizable to be honest. Now, this may or may not include everyone and or people only half associated, but 150 plus people is a little bit on the smaller side of things, but not by very much. Some studios do consist of over 600 people, but these would be some of the biggest that do exist, and some studios consist of as little as 30 or so, just looking at Expedition 33 as a solid example. Anyway, with sales looking relatively well and the overall attitude surrounding Wuchang slowly making its way into a much more positive light, I did want to discuss possible DLCs or sequels that we may one day see for Wuchang. Regardless of sales numbers, the developers must have another idea within the pipeline, and it's always an interesting thought as to whether they will double down with a DLC, a sequel, or maybe even a different game entirely. Given the numbers, it would be fair to say we should be seeing more from Lindsay in the future. We may get more and more info regarding this as time moves forward, but for now, we can almost certainly say that Wuchang has started to bring in the profits. We can deduce this by first seeing that Lindsay are based within China, and typically European and Asian-based developers have a more sustainable climate than developers based in other regions of the world. This isn't a strict rule, but typically it does still apply. Additionally, China is known for its incredible cost-effective game development solutions, so I would hazard a guess that Wuchang was likely cheaper to make for them than it would have been in most other places around the world. So if we factor in the day one Game Pass deal and over 1 million copies sold within the first 2 weeks, then it is quite clear to see that we're on pretty good ground already. This would all heavily suggest we will one day see the likes of DLC or sequels for Wuchang. For now, it's pretty clear the devs will be spending the coming months working on the actual game itself, not only ironing out issues and bugs, but also making changes to the core gameplay so as to adjust and iron out many mechanics that didn't quite stick the landing, such as the knockdown and healing time / animations. One thing players are worried about is the developers nerfing the game into something entirely different to what it originally launched as, and I do indeed find myself in this demographic to some extent. Taking the knockdown mechanic as an example, lots of players have spoken about this harshly due to being vulnerable on the ground, and I do very much agree, but the aspects of the mechanic regarding needing to dodge back to your feet in time with the enemy's follow-up attacks, and the way in which Wuchang approaches this mechanic compared to most of the games, is a welcome addition as far as I'm concerned. So I'm hoping they simply make the correct adjustments with mechanics, removing what isn't fair and keeping whatever is. As I said, I'd imagine we will see a fair few months of updates being rolled out, possibly even getting an announcement during that time, which touches on what we can expect for Wuchang's more distant future. Your guess would be as good as mine currently. I'm slowly formulating more of a picture on Wuchang and Lindsay as a whole, and anyone aware of how we've covered Kazan over the past 4 months will know there's not much about that game or its development cycle that I don't know, and I fully intend to behave the same with almost every game we cover on this channel. Speaking of which, I did want to touch on this topic and just shed some details on the overall focus moving forward. As some may know, this channel was built first upon creating guide videos, and then to create a more sustainable and preferred workflow, I began to incorporate news videos, which oftentimes take far less effort to make, but still perform quite well. Now, this is quite preferred by myself. News videos are great for not becoming burnt out. However, guide videos can and will take days to create, and when they are simply outperformed by much bigger channels, it's very hard to incentivize making them, especially when I have news videos highlighting the disparity even more so. My personal issue with that is that I actually like making guide videos, and although I don't want to work on them every day of my life, I would prefer to be cranking out much more guide videos than I currently am. The reason I'm not making as many as I would like to is because during the 2 or 3 weeks of research that I put into Wuchang prior to its launch, I watched all manner of small and big channels announce that they had early access keys to the game, granting them anywhere from weeks to even just 4 days early access. I applied multiple times and did not receive a key, which is simply what it is. But I have experienced the same with almost every game I've covered thus far, and with Wuchang given early access to so many channels of equal size to mine, and with me being hyper aware of just how many channels did get early access, I've basically realised that I have been one of the select few channels that have had to wait the longest to actually start working on the game. However, this is all simply the nature of the beast. I'm not complaining in the slightest, I'm just explaining some of the circumstances and struggles for me as a content creator, and how in this particular instance, it stung a little bit more than it usually does. So, I'm not entirely sure what to do moving forward, at least without receiving an early access key and being able to work on guide videos at the same time as my competition. Over the past few weeks, I've scrapped multiple video ideas simply due to them becoming quickly oversaturated, and I don't like the idea of rehashing the same old content as everyone else. So, until we begin to receive early access keys to games, I think I may begin leaning more into research and news videos regarding games instead, similar to the 2 or 3 weeks leading up to Wuchang's launch, where I was able to dig into all of the available footage and piece together a very clear picture of the game's mechanics and systems. I will still continue to make guide videos, but until I start acquiring early access keys, I don't plan on being too prolific, despite absolutely wanting to. So, if you've made it this far through the video, and I don't blame anyone for not having stuck around, then I will let you all in on a very little secret, which would be that I plan to cover Where Winds Meet when it releases later on this year. We do not have a confirmed release date just yet, but all sources point towards a late 2025 release. I was able to play the closed beta that ended roughly a week ago, and I've since been working on a range of different videos, and the first is expected to drop sometime tomorrow. I won't talk about it too much for now, but Where Winds Meet is an action RPG single player / MMO experience that honestly blew me away with its execution and was nothing like what I was expecting. It's a solid single player experience that is absolutely drenched in MMO elements, releasing on PC and PlayStation 5 with no news on Xbox whatsoever. So if that sounds interesting to yourself, then I advise checking out the first video tomorrow, where I'll be showing the first 5 or so hours of gameplay, as well as highlighting a lot of the game's other features and mechanics. And then beyond that, I'll be dropping multiple other videos over the coming weeks and months until it eventually does release. So stop on by whenever you want the latest. Anyway, that would be it for this video, folks. I'll be back over the coming days with more Wuchang. I plan to release at least one Kazan update video a week, and will slowly begin to start covering more games, both prior and post-launch, starting with Where Winds Meet, and likely throwing in a few more before the end of the year. I do have a range of guides and news videos on the channel already, so do feel free to stop on by and check things out. But otherwise, thanks for watching, folks, and until next time, peace.